Iris Cade kissed my cheek beneath the awning outside my building, smiled like the evening had ended exactly as planned, and walked away. 2 minutes later, my phone lit up. That wasn't what I wanted. 3 weeks earlier, I had met her because Priya Solis invited 6 people to dinner and failed to mention that 4 of them had already canceled. Priya and I had known each other since our first year working in Minneapolis, when we'd both occupied terrible apartments above the same laundromat and developed a friendship based largely on mutual complaints about coin-operated dryers. By 30, we had evolved into people who occasionally planned dinners 3 weeks in advance, and considered that evidence of maturity. When I arrived at Priya's place, carrying the bottle of wine she'd specifically told me not to bring because she already had too much wine, there were only 2 other people there. One was her cousin, who left before dessert because of a childcare problem. The other was Iris. She was standing at Priya's kitchen counter, with her sleeves pushed to her elbows, cutting a lime into wedges that were so uneven I assumed Priya had given her the task to stop her from doing something more dangerous. "You're Rowan," Priya said when I came in. I took off my coat. That's usually how introductions work. Iris glanced over. She had dark hair cut just below her jaw, a small silver hoop in one ear, and the kind of smile that appeared in stages, as if she preferred to decide whether something deserved the whole thing. Priya pointed at her with the wooden spoon. "This is Iris. She thinks cilantro tastes fine." "I'm sorry," Iris said. "For what?" "For whatever happened to you genetically." I looked at Priya. "You invited this person into your home?" "She brought dessert." "That changes things." Iris gave me the rest of the smile. Nothing remarkable happened after that, which was probably why I remembered almost all of it. We ate at Priya's table. We argued about whether adults were actually supposed to own matching towels. Iris told us about a woman at the print production company where she worked who had accidentally approved 2,000 conference brochures with the date printed as February 31st. I told her I worked as a property claims adjuster and spent enough of my week looking at photos of collapsed ceilings to have strong opinions about upstairs washing machines. "Your job is just telling people their disaster isn't covered?" she asked. "That's only Tuesdays." "What happens the rest of the week?" "I tell them their smaller disasters are partially covered." "That sounds fulfilling." "I sleep beautifully." She laughed. Not politely. That was the first thing. The second came later, when Priya was in the kitchen, pretending not to be irritated that the dishwasher had stopped draining. Iris and I were on the couch, discussing a restaurant that had opened near Lake Street. "You've been?" she asked. "Twice." "And?" "Good noodles. Bad chairs." "That's useful information." "I have priorities." "Would you go again?" "For the noodles." "With somebody?" I turned my head. She was looking at me with no attempt to pretend the question had been accidental. I said, "Potentially." "Good." That was the second thing. The third happened at the door. Priya hugged me goodbye. Iris was putting on a long green coat beside me. Then she said, "Rowan?" I looked at her. "Can I get your number?" There was no coyness in it, no performance, just a question she expected me to answer honestly. I gave it to her. She texted me before I reached my car. "Iris, verifying that you did not give me the number for a plumbing company." Me. "They probably answer faster." Iris. "Good. Thursday?" Me. "You move efficiently." Iris. "I work in print production. Deadlines have damaged me." Me. "Thursday works." Our first date was at the noodle place. She agreed the chairs were bad. That pleased me more than it should have. The evening was easy. Not instantly intimate, not cinematic, not one of those dates where people supposedly lose track of time and emerge 5 hours later convinced fate has personally interfered with their calendar. We were simply good at talking to each other. Iris told stories well because she didn't rush them. She had a talent for making one dry observation and then leaving enough space for me to notice it was funny. I learned she hated bananas but liked banana bread, which I told her was morally inconsistent. She learned I alphabetized the spices in my kitchen. You don't. I do. Why? So I can find things? They have labels. And letters. She stared at me across the table. Do you organize your socks? No. Thank God. By color. Her mouth fell open before she realized I was lying. That was cruel. It was easy. You're smug. Correct. When we walked outside after dinner, Iris touched my elbow to guide me around a patch of ice. Her hand stayed there maybe half a second longer than necessary. I noticed. I also did nothing. She hugged me at my car and said she wanted to see me again. I said I wanted that too. 3 days later, she sent me the address of a small comedy show in a converted warehouse and asked if I was free Saturday. I was. The comedian was terrible. That made the date better. Halfway through the show, Iris leaned toward me and whispered, "If he says dating apps one more time, I'm leaving." I whispered back, "You won't." "Why not?" "You paid $28. That is an insulting amount of insight into my character." "Property claims." "Right. You assess damage." Afterward, we found a bar 2 blocks away and sat near a window while snow started falling outside. Her knee touched mine under the table. Neither of us moved it. That was when I began wondering whether she was going to kiss me. I was not nervous about kissing women. I was not confused about whether Iris was attracted to women. She had casually mentioned an ex-girlfriend during our first date and called herself queer during our second. I was also reasonably certain she liked me. But certainty had levels. There was knowing somebody had asked for your number, knowing they had asked for a second date, knowing their knee had remained against yours beneath a table. And then there was knowing that if you leaned forward 6 inches, they wanted you to. I preferred the last kind. Iris, apparently, did not plan to give it to me. Outside the bar, she hugged me again. I felt her cheek brush my temple. For 1 second, I thought she might turn her face. She didn't. "Good night, Rowan." "Good night." I drove home telling myself there had been no reason to rush. That was true. It just wasn't the entire truth. Our third date was mine to plan. Technically, Iris had texted first. Again. But I chose the restaurant, made the reservation, and suggested we walk afterward if the weather cooperated. It was a Thursday, cold enough that the snow along the curb had hardened into gray ridges. We ate Ethiopian food, shared everything, argued over which dish we should order twice, and ended up walking almost 40 minutes afterward because neither of us seemed interested in saying goodnight. Iris was more affectionate than I was, though not dramatically. She bumped her shoulder against mine, touched my wrist when she laughed, hooked 2 fingers through my sleeve when I nearly walked past the turn toward my building. By then, I had stopped wondering whether I wanted her to kiss me. I did. The question was whether she would. We reached the awning outside my building a little before 11. "This is me," I said. "I remember." "That's reassuring." "I'm very good with landmarks." "You got lost coming here last week." "I'm good with some landmarks." We stood facing each other. There was plenty of light from the lobby behind me. Snow had started again, fine and dry, collecting on Iris's coat shoulders. Her hands were in her pockets. Mine were too. She smiled. I wanted to kiss her. It would have required almost nothing. A step, a tilt of my head, a question. Instead, I waited. I watched her eyes drop briefly to my mouth. That felt like evidence. But not permission. Not certainty. I thought, she'll do it if she wants to. Iris shifted closer. For a moment, I was sure she was going to. Then something in her posture softened. She leaned in and kissed my cheek. Gentle, warm, brief. When she pulled back, she smiled at me. I had a really good time. Me too. Good night, Rowan. Night. She walked toward the street. I watched her go, mildly annoyed with her for not having read my mind. That should have embarrassed me more than it did. I went upstairs. I had just removed my boots when my phone buzzed. That wasn't what I wanted. I stood in my hallway with one sock wet from melted snow and read the message twice. Then I typed, "What did you want?" The response came almost immediately. "To kiss you like I've been thinking about kissing you for 2 weeks." I laughed out loud. Then, "Why didn't you?" The typing indicator appeared, vanished, returned. "Because I couldn't tell if you wanted me to." I sat on the small bench near my door. I did. I know that now. How? Because you're asking why I didn't. I stared at that. She added, "I almost did, but you were standing very still, and I realized I was guessing. I didn't want to guess with your mouth." My smile disappeared for a different reason. Because it was annoyingly reasonable. I typed, "I thought I was being obvious." You were smiling at me. That is often considered encouraging. At dentists, too. I laughed again. Then I wrote, "For the record, I wanted you to kiss me." Her response took longer this time. "For the record, I'm trying very hard not to be irritated by information that would have been useful 20 minutes ago." Fair. Another pause. "I could come back." I looked at the message. My entire body reacted before my caution did. Then my caution caught up. It was 11 at night. She had already walked 3 blocks to wherever she'd parked. We both had work in the morning. I could have said yes. Instead, I typed, "Saturday?" The reply was immediate. "Saturday." Then, "And I'm not doing all the work this time." I smiled at my phone. Noted. It should have occurred to me then that she meant something broader than the kiss. It didn't. Saturday came with freezing rain. Iris suggested canceling the outdoor market we had planned. I invited her to my place instead and offered dinner. That counted as initiative, I told myself. And it did, just not in the way I eventually needed to understand. She arrived at 6 carrying a loaf of bread and a bottle of wine. I opened the door and said, "You were explicitly told not to bring anything." "You sound like Priya." "Get out!" She stepped inside. Neither of us hugged. We stood about 3 feet apart, both fully aware of the conversation we had been having 48 hours earlier. Iris removed her coat. "You alphabetize spices," she said. "That is still true." "I've been thinking about it." "That seems unhealthy." "I have questions." "You came here to interrogate my kitchen?" "Partly." I took her coat and hung it in the closet. When I turned back, she was closer. Not close enough to presume anything. Just close enough that I knew she had deliberately reduced the distance. She folded her arms. "I'm not doing it," she said. "Doing what?" "You know what." I did. "You're very committed to this." "I've spent 2 weeks trying to determine whether you wanted me to kiss you. I'm taking a personal day." I smiled. "You're at my apartment." "You invited me." "I did." "You're making dinner." "I am." "Very promising." "You're impossible." "No, I'm waiting." That irritated me, mostly because it worked. I was used to responding. Someone offered, I accepted or declined. Someone moved closer, I either welcomed it or created space. Someone asked, I answered. I could be decisive when the choice arrived neatly packaged. This wasn't packaged. I had to create the question. So I crossed the room. Iris stopped smiling, not because she was uncomfortable, because she was watching me carefully now. I stopped in front of her. "Can I kiss you?" Her expression changed into something warmer. "Yes." It was almost absurdly easy. I put one hand lightly against her waist. She rested hers against my arm, and I kissed her. There was no rush to it, no dramatic collision after weeks of denial, just the immediate, astonishing discovery that kissing Iris felt exactly as good as I had hoped, and considerably less complicated than the 48 hours of thinking that had preceded it. She kissed me back, slowly at first. Then her hand moved from my arm to the side of my neck. That made me smile against her mouth. She pulled back an inch. "What?" "Nothing." That wasn't nothing. "I'm annoyed." By the kiss? By how much easier this would have been on Thursday. Her eyes narrowed. "You are not blaming me for Thursday." "I would never." "You absolutely were." "I said I was annoyed generally." "With society?" "With circumstances." "I hate you." "Still want dinner?" "No." "Good. I didn't start it." She laughed and kissed me again. That was our first real kiss. And because we were adults, rather than fictional people who lost all awareness of food after touching someone they liked, we eventually stopped, ordered Thai food, and spent the rest of the evening alternating between eating noodles and kissing each other in my kitchen. After that, things accelerated without becoming reckless. Iris texted the next morning. "Still annoyed?" I replied, deeply. She sent, "Wednesday?" I said yes. On Wednesday, she chose a small Italian place near her apartment. After dinner, she reached for my hand when we crossed the street. I laced my fingers through hers. At her building, she asked if I wanted to come upstairs for tea. "You don't own tea," I said. "I own tea." "You told me last week you drink coffee until 4 and then regret it." "People can contain multitudes." "What kind of tea?" She considered. "I can probably acquire tea before we reach the 3rd floor." I went upstairs. She did, in fact, own tea. Expired tea. We drank wine instead. At the end of the night, Iris kissed me first. The next time, I did. Not because I had consciously decided to correct anything, I simply wanted to. She was standing beside my car, complaining about a man who had blocked the entire grocery aisle with a cart while comparing peanut butter labels. Halfway through her sentence, I kissed her. When I stepped back, she stared at me. "What?" "I was talking." "You were." "About peanut butter." "I know." "You interrupted me." Correct. She put both hands around my scarf and kissed me again. That moment stayed with me because it later complicated the version of myself I wanted to believe. I wasn't incapable of initiating. I did it when I felt completely safe. The problem was that I preferred somebody else to build most of that safety first. If you'd like the fuller, more intimate, and uncensored version of this story, you can find it on my Patreon page through the link in the description. By the 5th week, Iris had a mug at my apartment. Not an assigned mug. I wasn't deranged. It was just the one she always chose, an ugly yellow thing my mother had given me after a trip to Wisconsin. "You have 12 better mugs," I told her one Sunday morning. "This one has a cow." "That doesn't explain anything." "It explains everything." We were standing in my kitchen making coffee before driving to a hardware store because Iris had bought a narrow shelving unit for her bathroom and discovered that one of the wall anchors in the package had arrived bent. "You know they sell replacement anchors by themselves," I said. "Yes." "So why did you put the entire shelf back in the box?" I panicked. "You work with industrial printing equipment. That has technicians. You coordinate them. I email them. You manage deadlines for 40,000 copy print runs." "Correct. But one damaged plastic anchor defeated you." She drank from the cow mug. "I contain multitudes." That became one of our running jokes. Not a sentimental phrase, more of an accusation. When Iris ordered fries after saying she wasn't hungry, I told her she contained multitudes. When I claimed I didn't care which movie we watched and then vetoed 3 choices, she said the same. We liked ordinary things together. That surprised me. At first, I had expected attraction to be the exciting part. Instead, some of my favorite evenings involved errands. Iris was a terrible grocery shopper because she refused to make a list and then walked every aisle in the order the store presented them. I was efficient. I made a list according to department. "This isn't shopping," she complained one evening. "This is a military extraction. We need 6 things. We might discover a 7th. If we needed it, it would be on the list." That sentence makes me sad for you. You bought 3 kinds of crackers last time. They were all necessary. For what? Options. We argued for 6 minutes and left with my 6 things and her 7th, which was a jar of Chili Crisp neither of us needed, and both of us finished in 2 weeks. She was more social than I was, although not in a way that exhausted me. At restaurants, Iris learned servers' names. At coffee shops, she asked people questions and remembered the answers. I was perfectly capable of conversation. I just didn't collect strangers. "You have a fan club," I told her after a barista greeted her by name. "She knows my order." "She knows where your sister went on vacation." "I asked about her dog." "Exactly." "Do you not ask people about their dogs?" "Only if I know the dog." Iris laughed. "You are deeply suspicious of community." "I'm efficient." "Emotionally alphabetized." "That doesn't mean anything." "It means exactly what I want it to mean." By then, I knew the difference between Iris being amused and Iris pretending not to be annoyed. She knew I hated when people left cabinet doors open. I knew she had to sit in the aisle seat at movies because she hated asking strangers to move if she needed the bathroom. She knew I would eat almost anything except raw tomato. I knew she always said she wanted 10 more minutes in bed, and never meant 10. She folded fitted sheets well. I did not. I loaded a dishwasher like someone whose future depended on geometry. She loaded one like a raccoon. Neither of us became perfect because we liked each other. that mattered more than I expected. Iris could interrupt when she was excited. I could become overly literal in arguments. She procrastinated on small administrative tasks until they became irritating. I answered emails so quickly, she called it threatening. Sometimes she wanted to go out after a long work week, and I wanted to stay home. Sometimes she wanted quiet, and I wanted to fix whatever had made her quiet. We learned. We adjusted, and somewhere during the second month, without a formal conversation, it became obvious we were not seeing anyone else. Iris was the one who said it aloud. We were on her couch on a Tuesday, eating pizza from the box because she had forgotten to buy groceries. She muted the television. "Can I ask you something?" "You just did." "Great, we're done." I waited. She smiled. Then she said, "Are you dating anyone else?" "No." "Do you want to?" "No." "Good." "Are you?" "No." "Do you want to?" "No." We were quiet for a second. Then Iris said, "I realize this conversation is extremely romantic. I'm overwhelmed. I could light something." "You own one candle, and it smells like cedar." "Cedar is romantic." "It smells like a closet." "Do you want to be exclusive with me?" "Yes." Her smile appeared. Full version. "Okay." "Okay." She leaned across the couch and kissed me. I kissed her back. It never occurred to me that she had asked. Not just the exclusivity question. Almost every question. She asked when I was free, asked whether I wanted to try the new Korean place she'd heard about, asked if she could hold my hand the first time we were walking somewhere crowded, asked if I wanted her to stay on nights when she could have driven home, asked whether I liked having her arm around me when we slept. The answers were almost always yes. And because my yes was sincere, I considered myself an active participant. I was, just not an equal initiator. There was a difference I had not yet learned to see. I did initiate plenty of things. When Iris's car battery died one Saturday morning, I drove across town with jumper cables before she could finish explaining where she was. When she complained for 3 days about needing to replace the broken blinds in her bedroom, I measured the window, sent her 3 options, and told her to pick one. When she developed a headache after work one evening, I arrived with soup and painkillers. "You didn't have to do this," she said from the doorway. "I know." "I was going to order something." "You were going to forget to eat." "That's unfair." "What did you have for lunch?" She thought. I raised an eyebrow. "Shut up." I walked inside. Those things were easy for me. Practical need presented itself. I acted. One Friday, I was the one who invited Iris to a small gallery opening Priya had mentioned. Another night, I told her to come over after work because I had cooked too much food. Once, while she was washing dishes at my apartment, I walked up behind her and kissed the back of her neck. She turned around with wet hands raised. "That was aggressive." "You'll survive." "You've trapped me." "You have soap on your hands." "You planned this." "Obviously." She kissed me anyway, then smeared a streak of bubbles along my wrist. We were not lopsided enough for the problem to be obvious. That was part of why it lasted. Iris liked taking initiative. She enjoyed making plans. She was comfortable saying what she wanted. If she wanted to see me, she called. If she wanted a kiss, she moved closer or asked for one. If she wanted me to stay, she said, "Stay." I liked that about her. I told myself I was giving her room to be herself. I also told myself I didn't want to crowd her. Both statements were partly true. They were also convenient, because every time Iris reached first, she handed me certainty. When she sent the morning message, I knew she had woken up thinking about me. When she suggested Friday, I knew she wanted Friday with me. When she took my hand, I never had to wonder whether she wanted hers held. I did not think of this as avoiding risk. I thought I was respectful, patient, low pressure, the kind of woman who gave people space. I had no idea that, from the other side, space could eventually start to resemble distance. 3 months after we met, Iris came to my apartment on a rainy Saturday and stayed until Monday morning. It was the first time 2 nights had happened without either of us planning it. Saturday was deliberate. Sunday simply arrived. We cooked dinner together, or tried to. Iris had found a recipe for handmade dumplings that claimed to be beginner-friendly. "This author hates beginners," I said after our 4th wrapper tour. "You're overfilling them." "I'm following your instructions." "My instructions were based on optimism." "That was your first mistake." She had flour on her cheek. I wiped it away with my thumb. She caught my wrist before I lowered my hand. Then she kissed the center of my palm. It was such a small thing that I almost laughed. Instead, I kissed her. The dumplings remained unfinished for a while. Later, we ate the misshapen survivors sitting on the floor beside my coffee table, because neither of us had bothered to clear the dining table. Iris leaned against me. Her hair was still damp from the rain. "You're warm," she said. "You stole my sweater." "I improved your sweater." "It's inside out." "That's fashion." At some point after midnight, the conversation disappeared. She kissed me. I shifted closer. Her hand slid under the hem of my shirt, resting against my back. There was nothing tentative between us by then. No uncertainty about whether affection was welcome. Iris touched me with the ease of someone who had learned my answers. I followed her. Every time she moved closer, I met her. Every time she kissed me, I kissed her back harder. When she paused, I pulled her toward me again. She smiled against my mouth. "Bedroom?" "Yes." There was no hesitation in my answer. We left the lights low. Clothes found the floor gradually, without hurry or performance. Iris laughed when I got tangled taking off my sweater. I told her to stop being unhelpful. She became considerably less unhelpful. The rest belonged to us. Later, we lay under my comforter while rain tapped softly against the window. Iris's head rested on my shoulder. I traced slow lines over her arm. "Are you awake?" she asked. "No." "You answer questions in your sleep?" "I'm talented." "Multitudes?" "Don't ruin it." She smiled against my skin. A few minutes later, she reached for my hand beneath the blanket and linked our fingers. I squeezed hers. Sunday morning, she woke before me. I found her in my kitchen, wearing my t-shirt, drinking coffee from the cow mug. "You have a problem," I said. She turned. "You have no pants." "Different problem." I walked over, kissed her, and took the coffee from her hand. She protested. I drank anyway. She wrapped both arms around my waist from behind, while I made another cup. That weekend was one of the happiest I had spent with another person. And if someone had asked me then whether Iris wanted me, I would have thought the question was ridiculous. Of course she did. I had evidence everywhere. I had so much of it that I had stopped noticing how often she was the one providing it. The first sign that Iris had noticed came about 2 weeks later. We were eating breakfast before work at a diner near my office. She had stayed at my place the night before. Normally, she would have texted me after she got home that evening. She didn't. I noticed around 8:30. At 9, I noticed again. At 9:15, I told myself she was probably reading. At 9:30, I nearly texted. Then I thought she might be busy. That was my instinct. Not to interrupt, not to assume. Give her room. At 10:07, my phone buzzed. Sleep well, claims department? I smiled immediately. Me. Eventually. Iris. Your radiator is trying to kill people. Me. It builds character. Iris. I've heard that about carbon monoxide, too. The conversation continued normally. I never thought about the fact that I had waited more than an hour for her to start it. Iris did. I didn't know that yet. A few days later, we finished dinner and stood outside the restaurant. Usually, one of us would say something about the next time we were seeing each other. Usually Iris. That evening, she didn't. She hugged me. Get home safe. You too. Text me when you're in. I will. She kissed me. Then she left. Driving home, I realized we had no plans. By the time I reached my apartment, the absence felt strangely loud. I could have texted, Friday? Or, come over tomorrow. Instead, I waited until I had taken off my coat, washed my face, and changed clothes. Then I thought it might be too late. The next morning, Iris texted, How's your Thursday? Relief came before I had any reason to call it relief. I answered. Another week passed. She was not distant. That was what confused me later. She still laughed with me, still came over, still kissed me, still told me about her day. But small things changed. At a neighborhood market one Saturday, she walked beside me without automatically taking my hand. I noticed after maybe 30 seconds. I considered reaching for hers. Then someone passed between us and the moment disappeared. Later, she asked what I wanted for lunch. Whatever you want. I asked what you want. I'm easy. I know. Something about the answer sounded different. Not angry. Tired, maybe. What do you feel like? I asked first. I looked at her. She smiled, but it was smaller. Your call, Rowan. I chose Lebanese. She said, great. The rest of lunch was normal. I told myself I had imagined the tone. Then came Friday. We had dinner, walked around the lake afterward, and ended up sitting on a bench talking until the cold forced us back toward our cars. It had been a genuinely good night. I knew it had. Iris was relaxed. She laughed at my story about a homeowner who had tried to classify a raccoon invasion as weather-related structural damage. We argued about whether lasagna counted as a casserole. She insisted it did. I told her Italy would revoke her passport if she ever acquired one. Nothing was wrong. At her car, we stood close. Iris smiled at me. Thanks for tonight. Thank you for finally admitting you're wrong about lasagna. I admitted nothing. You hesitated. I was cold. Excuses. She laughed. Then neither of us moved. Normally, she would kiss me. I waited. Iris waited too. I thought she was giving me time. Then I wondered whether she didn't feel like kissing me. That possibility landed quickly. My instinct was immediate. Don't push. So I didn't. We stood there for another few seconds. Her eyes stayed on mine. I could see the invitation. or what I thought might be an invitation.
But it wasn't certainty.
Eventually, Iris's smile changed. Not vanished. Changed. Good night, Rowan. Good night. She opened the car door. I stepped back. She drove away without kissing me. I spent the entire drive home trying to understand why that bothered me. By the next week, I had started watching for signs. Iris went one full day without texting first. I noticed. I didn't text either. At 6 that evening, she sent me a photograph of a ridiculous typo in a restaurant advertisement. I answered immediately. She reacted with a laughing emoji. Then nothing. On Wednesday, we had no plans. Neither of us made any. On Thursday morning, I decided I would ask her to dinner. Then work became busy. A water damage claim involved 3 apartments and 1 furious landlord. By lunch, I had forgotten. At 4:30, Iris texted, "Want to eat tomorrow?" The relief returned. "Yes," I replied.
I didn't ask myself why I had needed her to ask first, when I had already decided I wanted the same thing. Friday night, she was affectionate but restrained. Not withholding, not punishing. Iris was not built for cruelty. She simply stopped filling every empty space. She let some of them remain empty. And I discovered that I had no idea what to do with them. 2 weeks into this strange adjustment, I finally asked. We were at my apartment. Dinner was finished. Iris was sitting at the far end of the couch with her legs tucked beneath her, scrolling through the film options on my television. "What about this?" "No." "You rejected it before I finished reading the title." "There's a horse on the poster." "You hate horses now?" "I don't trust movies that use horses emotionally." She stared at me. "That is one of the most specific prejudices I've ever heard." "You'll thank me." She chose something else. I wasn't paying attention. Finally, I said, "Are you pulling away from me?" Her thumb stopped on the remote. She turned. "What?" "You've been different." Iris lowered the remote. "Different how?" I suddenly disliked having started the conversation. But I was not someone who retreated once a question was on the table. "You don't ask to see me as much." She was quiet. "You don't text the same way." "Rowan, and sometimes when we're together, it feels like you're waiting for me to do something. But I don't know what." Iris's face tightened slightly. I continued. "If something changed, I'd rather you just tell me." She placed the remote on the table. "Nothing changed about how I feel about you." "Then why does it feel like you're pulling away?" "I'm not." "It feels like you are." She looked down at her hands for a moment. When she raised her eyes again, she appeared uncomfortable. Not defensive. That made me more nervous. "I've been trying something," she said. I frowned. "Trying what?" She hesitated. That was enough to irritate me. "Iris." "I stopped automatically being the first person to do everything." I said nothing. She continued. "I stopped always texting first, always asking when you're free, always deciding when we're seeing each other again, always reaching for your hand before you reach for mine." My stomach sank. Not because I didn't understand, because I did. "You've been testing me?" She winced. "I wouldn't call it—" "What would you call it?" She stopped, then nodded once. "Fine. A test. Yes." I stood. "Seriously?" "I know how that sounds."
It sounds like you deliberately changed how you treated me to see what I'd do. I did change some things. Without telling me. Yes. That's incredibly unfair. I know. No, Iris, you don't get to say you know like that ends the conversation. I'm not trying to end it. I walked into the kitchen, not because I wanted to leave, but because sitting still felt impossible. She followed more slowly. You could have asked me, I said. You could have said, hey, I need you to initiate more. Instead, you decided to run an experiment. You're right. The immediate agreement made me angrier. Stop doing that. Doing what? Agreeing with me like you're trying to manage the argument. I'm agreeing because you are right about that part. That part. Her jaw tightened. There it was, the irritation she had been holding. Yes, that part. I folded my arms. Okay, what part am I wrong about? Iris leaned against the counter. I wasn't trying to find out if you cared about me. That's what a test is. No, I know you care about me. Do you? Yes. Then what were you trying to find out? She stared at the floor for a second. When you wanted me. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because the statement made no sense to me. I'm with you. I know. I'm exclusive with you. I know. I say yes when you ask me to come over. I know. I stay when you ask me to stay. I know. I kiss you back. I know. Then what are we talking about? Iris looked at me. That. What? The fact that every example you just gave starts with me doing something. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She continued before I could find an answer. I know you want me when I've already made it safe for you to want me. I know you want to see me after I ask if you're free. I know you want me to stay after I ask. I know you want the kiss after I start it. That's not fair. I know you initiate things sometimes. Apparently not enough. That isn't what I said. It's what you mean. Iris pushed away from the counter. No, I'm not keeping score. It sounds like you are. I'm trying to explain how it started feeling. Then explain it without making me sound like I sit motionless until you activate me. Her expression flickered. I don't think that. You clearly do. I don't. Then what do you think? Iris was quiet long enough that I nearly repeated the question. Then she said, Sometimes I want to know you wanted me before you knew the answer was yes. The room went still. I hated the sentence immediately because it touched something I did not want touched. I crossed my arms tighter. That's romantic nonsense. Her eyebrows lifted. Is it? Yes. Why would I deliberately risk making you uncomfortable when I can wait until I know what you want? I'm not asking you to make me uncomfortable. That's what you're describing. No, I'm describing you occasionally being the person who asks the question. I do ask questions. About restaurants. I stared at her. Iris rubbed a hand across her forehead. That came out badly. Did it? Yes. Because I think it came out pretty clearly. I'm frustrated. So am I. I don't need some grand declaration from you, Rowan. I don't need you to plan every date or text me every morning at 8. I liked initiating. I still like initiating. Apparently you resent it. I didn't. Not until I started wondering what would happen if I stopped. And instead of asking me, you stopped. Yes. She looked ashamed now. Good, some uncharitable part of me thought. Then I hated myself a little for thinking it. Iris continued. That was wrong. Yes. I should have talked to you. Yes. But what I found out still hurt. I looked away. What did you find out? That when I left space, you mostly waited. I thought you wanted space. Why? Because you were taking it. I was sitting 6 inches from you. That doesn't mean you wanted me touching you. Rowan, we've been sleeping together for months. That doesn't give me permanent permission. I know that. Then don't act like it should. I'm not. Her voice sharpened. I am not asking you to assume permission. I am asking why your version of respect always seems to require me to go first. I didn't have an answer, so I reached for the easiest defense. I don't want to be pushy. You aren't pushy. You don't know what I would be if I stopped thinking before I acted. I know you. That's not the same thing. No, Rowan. It's exactly the thing I'm trying to say. She took a breath. When you want a reservation, you call the restaurant. When you want a problem fixed, you fix it. When you wanted new shelves in my bathroom because you were tired of knocking over my shampoo, you measured the wall without asking me. You complained about the shelves for a month. That is not the point. Then what is? The point is that you know how to reach for things you want. Her voice lowered. You just seem to need me to prove I'm reaching back before you do it with me. I went very still. The accusation felt too intimate. Not because it was cruel, because I could see pieces of truth in it. And seeing them while angry made me want to reject all of them. I don't think that's fair. Maybe it isn't. You changed your behavior on purpose. I know. You made me feel like you were losing interest because you wanted information. I know. That's manipulative. Her face tightened. Yes. That surprised me. She swallowed. Yes, it was. I told myself I was just giving you room to show me something. But I was testing you, and I should have asked. You're right. I stared at her. Then Iris said, But you were scared I was losing interest before you ever tried coming toward me. That landed harder. My anger remained. So did hers. Neither canceled the other. I need to go home, she said. My stomach dropped. Iris, I'm not breaking up with you. I didn't say you were. You thought it. I hated that she was right. She reached for her coat. I just don't think we're going to solve this tonight. I stood near the door while she put it on. I wanted to ask her to stay. The words rose. Then my pride caught them. Iris looked at me. For one terrible second, I wondered whether she was waiting. That made me angry all over again. So I said, Okay. Her face closed slightly, not dramatically, just enough. Okay. She left. We did not speak the next day. That was unusual. I reached for my phone at least 20 times. I told myself she needed space. That phrase had become almost ridiculous. I had used it so often that it no longer meant anything. On the second day, Iris sent one message. I'm not ignoring you. I think a few days might be good. I'm sorry for how I handled this. I read it several times. Then I answered, I'm sorry too. A few days is probably good. She reacted with a heart. That was all. I spent Saturday cleaning my apartment. Not because I was devastated, because it needed cleaning. The fact that I had reorganized the hall closet by noon suggested I was slightly more distressed than I wanted to admit. Around 2, I realized I had no groceries. I made a list. Produce, dairy, dry goods, cleaning supplies. I drove to the store. I moved through the aisles efficiently. At the deli counter, the employee told me they were out of the turkey I usually bought. Do you have the smoked one? I asked. Yes. I'll take half a pound. Easy. At checkout, I noticed I'd been charged twice for coffee. I walked to customer service. I think this scanned twice. The woman checked my receipt. You're right. She refunded it. Easy. Driving home, I noticed my tire pressure warning light. At the gas station, the pump was broken. I drove to another. Easy. The pattern was irritating enough that I tried not to think about it. I failed. I was not indecisive. I was not afraid to ask strangers for corrections. I was not worried that the deli employee might feel pressured by my request for smoked turkey. That comparison was ridiculous. It was also useful. At home, I put away groceries and found Iris's cow mug in the dishwasher. I did not turn it into a metaphor. It was a mug. I put it in the cabinet. Then I sat on the couch. The problem with Iris's argument was not that it was entirely correct. It wasn't. She had made assumptions too. She had wanted directness from me while choosing indirectness herself. She had changed the rules without telling me and watched to see whether I would notice. That was unfair. I remained angry about it. But my anger could not erase the question underneath. If Iris had not texted first after our first date, would I have? Probably. The word felt weak. After our second? Maybe. After she kissed my cheek? That one I knew. Eventually. Once I had enough evidence. I thought about our first real kiss. I had initiated it, but only after Iris had told me explicitly that she wanted it. I had counted that as bravery. Maybe it had been. But it had also been bravery with almost all the risk removed. I thought about Friday at her car. I had wanted to kiss her. She was standing close. I had known she loved kissing me. We had been together for months. Still, the moment she did not initiate, I had retreated. Not because she had said no, because she had not said yes first. I pressed my palms against my eyes. Damn it. There was nobody there to hear me. That helped. The third day was worse, because understanding something did not tell me what to do with it. I missed her. That was simple. I wanted to see Iris. Also simple. But I didn't text. Not yet. Partly because she had asked for a few days. Partly because I wanted to be certain I wasn't contacting her simply to stop feeling uncomfortable. That distinction was difficult. On Monday, I went to work. A contractor called about a claim and tried to convince me water could travel uphill. I informed him physics remained in effect. My manager sent back a report because I had attached the wrong photograph. I corrected it. At lunch, Priya sent me a picture of her new dining table. I responded with, "Looks expensive." She wrote, "Your support means everything." I did not tell her about Iris. Not because I was hiding anything, because I did not want someone else's interpretation. For once, I needed to decide what I thought before asking for confirmation. That realization was irritating enough that I laughed alone at my desk. Tuesday evening, I got home and opened the refrigerator. There was nothing I wanted. I considered delivery. Then I remembered Iris liked a Vietnamese place near her office that I had never tried because she always complained it was too far from my apartment. I wanted noodles. I ordered noodles. That did not solve my relationship.
But it reminded me of the simplicity of desire when I didn't treat it as a problem requiring approval. I wanted noodles. I chose noodles. I wanted Iris. That was more complicated because Iris was a person, not dinner. She could say no. That was the entire issue. I had spent months arranging things so I rarely had to hear one. Not consciously, not selfishly, but effectively. The next evening, I picked up my phone. I did not type a long apology. I did not compose 3 versions and ask Priya which sounded best. I wrote, "Can I see you tonight?" Then I sent it. For 40 seconds, nothing happened. My pulse felt ridiculous. Then the typing indicator appeared. Yes. I let out a breath. Her next message came. "My place? 7?" I typed, "Works for me." Then I stopped, deleted it, and wrote, "I'll bring dinner." At 7, I stood outside Iris's apartment holding 2 paper bags. She opened the door wearing jeans and a gray sweater. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped aside.
"Come in." I did. Her apartment looked exactly the same. That felt strangely reassuring. I put the food on the counter. "You brought noodles. You recommended them. 4 months ago." I remember things. I know. We sat at her small kitchen table. Neither of us touched the food immediately. Iris folded her hands. "I'm sorry," she said. I shook my head. "I asked to come over. Let me start." She stopped. That small act mattered more to me than it should have. I looked at her. "I'm still angry that you tested me." "I know." "I think you should have told me you were unhappy before deciding to see what happened if you changed your behavior." "You're right." "And I don't want us doing that to each other." "No." "If you need something, I need you to say it." "I will." I nodded. Then came the harder part. "I also think I used your mistake to avoid looking at mine." Iris's expression softened, but she stayed quiet.
I kept thinking that because I always responded to you, that meant I was showing you the same thing you were showing me. I rubbed my thumb against the edge of the table. It didn't. She opened her mouth. I shook my head slightly. "Let me finish." She nodded. "I liked knowing." "Knowing what?" "That you wanted me before I did anything." I met her eyes. "When you texted first, I knew. When you asked to see me, I knew. When you kissed me, I knew." I told myself I was being respectful, and sometimes I was, but I was also making you take most of the chances. Iris's eyes lowered. "I didn't know I was doing it." "I know. That doesn't make it harmless." "No." I leaned back. "I don't want you to have to guess whether I care about you." "I don't guess that." "I know. I never doubted that part." "I believe you." She looked at me again. "I just wanted to feel wanted before I asked sometimes."
The sentence hurt differently now. Not like an accusation.
Like information I wished she had trusted me with sooner.
You should have told me that. I should have. Instead of conducting your terrible social experiment. It was a very bad experiment. No control group. Completely unethical. Sample size of 1. I've been ashamed of the methodology. I smiled despite myself. She smiled too. Then it faded. I'm sorry, Rowan. I know. No. I mean specifically. I was scared to ask you because I thought if I had to request initiative, then it wouldn't count. That's unfair too. Yes. You wanted spontaneity on demand. When you put it like that, I sound terrible. You were terrible. Thank you. I am being supportive. She laughed once, then she said, I wanted you to be direct, and instead of being direct myself, I became weird. You became subtle. I hate subtle. You're bad at it. I know. We sat there. Nothing was magically repaired. But the tension had changed.
The anger was no longer between us as a wall. It was information we both had to use. Iris tapped one finger against the table. So what now? I could have said I didn't know. I did know. I want to keep doing this. Her eyes held mine. So do I. I'm not promising I'm going to become someone who texts you 40 times a day. Please don't. I'm serious. I know. I might still hesitate. That's allowed. And sometimes if I don't initiate, it will actually mean I'm tired or distracted or I think you need space. Also allowed. But I'll try to stop using space as a hiding place every time I'm not certain. Iris nodded. And I'll ask instead of testing. Good. I reserve the right to occasionally complain. You already exercise that right aggressively. She smiled. I stood. Iris watched me. This was the moment. Not because a reconciliation required a kiss. It didn't. We could have eaten noodles. We could have hugged. We could have spent another hour talking. But I wanted to kiss her. And for once I decided that the wanting itself was enough reason to ask. I walked around the table. Iris tilted her face up. I stopped in front of her. Can I kiss you? Her smile appeared slowly. Yes. I kissed her. Not triumphantly, not to prove I had learned something. I kissed her because I wanted to. Her hand settled lightly against my waist. Mine held her face. When we separated, Iris kept her forehead against mine for a second. Then she said, That was very responsible. I laughed. Don't ruin this. I'm praising you. Stop. Excellent consent practices. Iris. She kissed me again. Later, over cold noodles, we talked about what had actually happened during those weeks. She told me the first day she waited for me to text, she lasted until 10 in the evening. I thought it was 9. 10:07. You remember the exact time? I was being psychologically normal. Clearly. She admitted that after the night at her car, she went home furious. At me? Mostly at myself. For what? For standing there expecting you to read a test you didn't know you were taking. I put my chopsticks down. I wanted to kiss you. I know. How? You were staring at my mouth. That feels accusatory. It's observational. I thought maybe you didn't want me to. I did.
And you thought I didn't want you to? Yes. We both stopped. Then Iris started laughing. I did too. Oh, that's depressing, she said. It's almost impressive. We recreated the first month. Except worse because we knew better. Growth. Apparently not linear. She reached across the table and took my hand. I squeezed hers. Then, because I wanted to, I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Her expression softened. I did not ask what it meant. Some things I was beginning to trust, without turning them into guarantees. The next few months were not a montage of perfect emotional behavior. That would have been convenient. It also would have been false. I still hesitated sometimes. Iris still occasionally assumed I understood things she had not said. Once, she was annoyed for almost an entire evening because I had not invited her to a work dinner. When she finally mentioned it, I stared at her. You told me you hate work dinners. I hate my work dinners. That distinction was not available to me. I thought you knew. How? She opened her mouth, closed it. Right. Use words. I wanted to be invited. Okay. I still might have said no. That sentence is exhausting. She kissed my cheek. Multitudes. Another time, I asked if she wanted to spend the weekend at my place. She said she already had plans Saturday afternoon. My old instinct whispered that I had overreached somehow. I recognized it, then let it pass. Come over after? I'd like that. Simple. Sometimes the answer was no. That was the part I had spent years avoiding without knowing it. One Thursday, I texted her at 3. Dinner tonight? She replied, Can't. Deadlines are awful, and I'm staying late. I stared at the no. Nothing happened to me. I wrote, Tomorrow? She answered, Please. The rejection of Thursday did not become rejection of me. Obvious. Embarrassingly obvious. But knowing something intellectually was different from living through it enough times to trust it. I started calling Iris when I wanted to hear her voice, instead of waiting until she called. Sometimes she didn't answer. She called back later. I started asking when she was free before she asked me. Sometimes our schedules didn't match. We found another day. I reached for her hand without checking whether she had reached first. If she was carrying something, she laughed and gave me her wrist. I learned that initiative was not a demand. It was an offer. Iris changed, too. She stopped pretending she didn't care about things she cared about. If she wanted me to plan the next date, she said so. If she had initiated 3 weekends in a row and wanted me to choose the 4th, she told me. Once, while we were sitting on my couch, she said, I need affection. I turned. That direct? I'm practicing. What kind? Come here. I did. She leaned against me. That worked well, she said. Excellent methodology. Still mocking me? Forever. Months after the argument, on an ordinary Wednesday, I finished work at 6:12. It had been a long day. 2 hail claims, 1 kitchen fire, and a man who kept insisting the damage to his roof had been caused by a storm, even though the weather report for the date he provided showed clear skies. I sat in my car outside the office. My apartment was 15 minutes west. Iris's was 20 minutes east. We had no plans. She had not texted me. I had not texted her. I thought about going home. Then I thought about Iris. I wanted to see her, that was all. No evidence, no invitation, no carefully prepared opening. I called. She answered on the fourth ring. Hi. Hi. You sound tired. I am. Bad day? Apparently weather can be retroactive if you argue loudly enough. That sounds scientifically important. I thought so. She laughed. I started the car. What are you doing? Standing in my kitchen, deciding whether crackers count as dinner. They don't. You're very controlling. I'm coming over. There was a tiny pause. Then, warmly, okay. I'm picking up food. What do you want? You decide. Dangerous. I trust you. I drove to the Vietnamese place. Iris buzzed me into her building 25 minutes later. When she opened the apartment door, she was wearing old sweatpants and her hair was tied badly on top of her head. Very glamorous, I said. You invited yourself. I did. You accept the conditions. I brought noodles. She stepped aside. I accept you. I walked in. She closed the door. I set the bag on the counter, turned, and kissed her before she could say anything else. Iris kissed me back. Then she stole the bag from my hand. I'm starving. That was romantic. You knew who I was. We ate on the couch. Halfway through dinner, Iris remembered she had bought tickets for a Sunday afternoon film screening and asked if I wanted to go. Yes. Good. 10 minutes later, I told her I wanted her at my place Friday because I was cooking. What? Dinner. You're cooking? Yes. Should I bring emergency food? No. Should I eat first? Get out. She laughed and leaned over to kiss me. Later, when I stood to take our dishes into the kitchen, Iris caught my hand and pulled me back down beside her. Stay. I did. Not because she had chosen me first. Not because I needed proof. Because she asked, and I wanted the same thing. A few minutes later, I reached for her before she reached for me. And when she smiled, I didn't need the smile to tell me I had been right to try.